Thank you all very much for having me. My name is Robert Overweg, and today I will tell you about the increasing digitization of our lives, about how virtual reality is evolving, our learnings we had with our product Beyond Sports, and with Beyond Sports we transform real soccer matches into virtual reality simulations. And that is a triple IT product. We are 100 people strong in Alkmaar, and we make mostly applications like the My Vodafone app, where it was really a user-centric approach that we chose. Everything evolves around you, around the user, and everything you want to know comes towards you. And actually, we already have some sort of AI implemented in our chat, and chat is our main focus point in this application. If referring to the prior speaker. We also recently did RTL XL. Together with Wunder, we did a rebranding of their video-on-demand platform, and we made it a more human, a more flexible brand, also more personal, which you could see here. We wrote out we had the hand lettering, and we wrote the RTL XL, and RTL XL then also is inside your application, and we developed and designed both their tablet and their phone, and the phone application. And what is interesting is that this identity, it can transform towards the user, it can adapt towards the user. So Chantal can choose her own color, Bart can have his more manly color, and also the content adapts to what the user wants to see. But now on to the main part of the talk. Digital is taking over. I have to admit, I am a bit biased because I'm a real digital native. I've been browsing through virtual worlds since I was really young. And I started my career as an artist. Back in 2007, I started photographing in computer games. And as you can see here in the back, this is from a game. Left 4 Dead. And in Left 4 Dead, I found the end of the virtual world. And I found the virtual world in many different places. I also found worlds like these where you could see that the virtual world does not have like these thick walls, but walls are like 1 pixel thick, and they more look like something from a cowboy movie, like with this facade. And I found it really interesting to just dwell in these worlds and document these. These brought me all over the world, from South Korea to this series has recently been in Centre Pompidou. So people are getting more and more interested in these kind of things. And I believe that everything around us, from your thoughts, your drawings, your chatter, people around you, your entire world is going to get digitized. Actually, half of it already is. All of the examples I will show right now, they like 90% are already out there. So we saw Hatsune Miku. She visited David Letterman recently when the show was still on, and she is this 3D holographic pop star. She was made because someone wanted to promote his own 3D tool. She's this really big vocalist singer in the Asian market. And as you can see here, the entire crowd, so you can imagine you guys, you know all of the words, every lyric of this song, and you sing together with this 3D holographic projection. And of course this is from the Asian market, so this is a bit more crazy. But what is interesting is that she visited David Letterman, so this kind of stuff is coming into the Western world as well. With the program Live 2D, you can just take a scan of your drawing and then transform the drawing into a 3D graphic. So you can even have the subtlety of your drawing with a pencil. When you scan that gets then transformed on your 3D render, and which you can use in virtual reality. You could also imagine that if your kid makes this drawing, that you just make a scan of this drawing and then create a 3D world out of it. So you and your kid can just walk into the castle, have this gigantic 3D scanned angel, which he or she created, and then, we can then have even more creativity in the digital world. Through the app 1-3D Catch, which is already quite old, you can 3D scan any object you have. It just takes a couple of photographs, like 20, and it stitches them together. And here you see an example of how that works. what is interesting about this is that us people, we are all creating these digital copies of the real world. So some people scan their children, some people scan their own products. So we are digitizing everything around us. And Obama, instead of having a normal photograph taken of him, his face was 3D scanned, and you see the 3D scanning setup here in the background. When it becomes really interesting is when the virtual and the physical mix together with each other. This is a product from Rescape, and with Rescape you add sort of augmented reality or virtual reality to the physical world. So we could be in this space, and we could also have this virtual space which we can interact with. And so you see your mates here. When your mates walk into the view, they become these avatars. And to me, it's really interesting if you look back at this example, which you all probably know, Avatar. Cost around $300 million or euros to make. Was made by James Cameron, and James Cameron said, I can only make this movie if I have the necessary tools to make this movie. And he needed something like this. So this is like a camera, and through this camera he can look into the virtual world. So he sees the actors running there, but he sees them as the 3D models that they will become in the movie. And if you look back at, this was back in 2009, and now the same sort of software and system already runs on your phone. So it's going quite fast that we can do these sort of things ourselves. And this is even more crazy. So on one side you see a 3D scan of this guy's face, and on the other side you see him moving his face, and that gets then translated on the other guy. So imagine if this gets implemented in movies, then if you're moving your face, you could see Brad Pitt's face moving in the movie, and it's going to be such a mindfuck, and it's going to be so weird and crazy. And we also have different tools by, for an example, Google again, with Project Tango. You have 2 cameras or 4 cameras on your tablet, and you can just walk around in your own house, and this thing completely 3D scans your environment. So the outdoor has been scanned by Street View and Google Maps, and now we will scan our own environment indoors through Project Tango. And the driverless cars, some people already referred to this. This is what it sees, and it gathers 1 gigabyte of data each second. So it's constantly scanning the environment, and you can't tell me that we won't be using these kind of data sets in making them into 3D renders and then going back into them. So that's actually my point. When we have digitized everything, I believe that we will experience these things through virtual reality, either the renders or the recordings. And the virtual reality market has really taken on. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon. Of course, Facebook bought Oculus for $2 billion. And Samsung is a partner together with Oculus. Google even jumped on the same train. And you see, every 12 to 14 months, these products, they get twice as good as they were before. So now you get still a little bit of motion sickness. And maybe the headset is maybe a bit too big. But for an example, the Gear VR you can already buy for €100, so it's getting cheaper and it's getting better every time. Mark Zuckerberg says that within the next 2 to 3 years, your entire Facebook stream will be video, and that video will autoplay. So you could see this as this non-linear new TV channel of your friends and of all the products you follow. And for them, the next logical step past that or after that is more immersion. And with what can you get more immersion? Of course, with virtual reality. And that's what they see themselves as well. And what the big companies do really well is make the first possible step you can getting towards that goal of virtual reality. They have recently implemented this, I think a couple of weeks ago, that you can view 360-degree videos on your own smartphone in your Facebook stream. And you can either just look around like this, or you can touch your screen and swipe around. You see Google doing the same thing. They take the first logical step towards virtual reality. So they offer this free to schools, which is, I believe, really cool. You just put your phone in this headset, or actually they supply the phones, and then you and your classmates can all go together on this city or this school trip together. And in this video you will hear a couple of kids talking about what they want to experience.
Go to the moon, Thailand, ancient Greece.
India to Nigeria, my homeland.
One or maybe all of the 7 wonders of the world. When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you could go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
All right, so let's do our objective and we'll talk about the lesson for today.
We're going to take a field trip to Verona, Italy, to see the place where Romeo and Juliet lived.
I'm going to take you on this field trip under the water. Okay, you guys ready? Pick up your devices.
And look in your cardboard.
What is that? I see a shark.
It allowed us to go somewhere we wouldn't normally be able to go.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China? So much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
So you heard some of the interesting responses of the kids, and especially kids who will never be able to visit the Great Wall of China. They can experience how big the world is and maybe get motivated to experience more. And imagine virtual reality when you have when your virtual reality goggles is also a headset, which you just fold, and then you can view virtual reality. Then you can imagine that a friend of mine or myself, I just stream something to my mates, and they flip their phone and they can watch a 360-degree video of where I am. So I believe that kids will prefer visiting places in VR above visiting physical places because it is more instant, it is more fun, and you have a better view. Take for an example, driving in a Formula 1 car. It's really like you are there, you're sitting there, and you can just look around, and it's a real proper experience. Or for an example, go to a Paul McCartney concert, and you see the camera of Jaunt is right there. It's a 360-degree camera. There's a demo already available by Jaunt, which you can try, and then you can just switch to different locations on the stage, and it's really like you're being there. Or for an example, the Colosseum. I recently been there together with my girlfriend. We had to pay like 20 euros to go in, had to wait in line, took a long while. But in VR, I can just pick this up at home, put it on my head, and then I could visit that. It's really instant, really easy. You could make a comparison with, for an example, computer games. When you have an Xbox console, put in a different game, and then you are in this different world. But of course, you can also fly through it and have this better view, which you can't have when you are physically there. But of course, we will still, because we are human, we will still get together in colosseums or arenas and experience stuff together. Right here you see people watching a finale of League of Legends, and that is a game. And what is interesting about this is that, of course, people are still flocking together, like 40 or 60,000 people, but 27 million people watched a stream of this game online. So the traction you get, or the reach in a digital field, is of course larger than you can ever get with normal gatherings of people together. And this is how it looked like.
Series to see where the fan vote stands. I'm sure it's going to be going back and forth. But Starhorn, they got a pretty good chunk of it. There are believers, but the stats, they almost say different.
So here we go then into game number 1 of the 2014 World Championship.
So they
final.
even have their own like commentary, and it's really like a sportscast. And 27 million people have watched this stream. Not all live, of course, but it's pretty crazy what kind of stuff is already happening. And it is not a niche anymore because there's this new digital wave coming, or which is maybe already there. Like 53 million people every month watch streams on Twitch, and on Twitch you can watch other people play video games, and 40 million people play fantasy soccer sports. And for these things, you don't really need a physical aspect anymore. So it becomes almost completely virtual, almost completely digital. Now, going more into the virtual reality part and beyond sports with what we are creating, we create virtual reality simulations from real soccer matches. And we do that for Ajax, PSV, AZ, and the Dutch national team. Too bad that we weren't able to help the Dutch team in the prior phase, but we're trying to work on that. So how does it work? For us, we have a data set. We have 4 cameras on the side of a soccer match, and those cameras record the entire match. And for us, those are just XY coordinates running around. And on top of that, those XY coordinates, we put a 3D shell. So you see an actual render of a soccer match commencing here. And this is, of course, a familiar sight. This is what we already know. But with virtual reality, you can be any player. You can be Messi, you can be the defender, you can be anyone. And there's an example here. So you can be, the most interesting thing here is that the matter of empathy. Because when a soccer player puts this on his head, he can re-experience the match, but he can also show it to his teammate how he experienced that situation. And also, you can experience the match through the eyes of the competitor. So you can get this sort of competitive advantage because you know how he experienced stuff. Or maybe you can already run against Ronaldo and experience how fast he runs in real life and adapt your game accordingly. Since we are at the Dutch Design Week, I wanted to go a little bit into the things we did wrong and the things we can do better in virtual reality. And I showed the RTL and Vodafone designs earlier because I want to show that since we know a little bit about creating interfaces for virtual reality is a completely different ballgame. So first we started out with creating this. So imagine you are at a soccer field. As a soccer player, you put on the headset and then you can pull up a heads-up display, a HUD. And this is what the HUD looked like in the first version. So all of the possibilities we had, we put in there. So on the right you have the opposing team, your own team, the entire match. So you have like 90 minutes from like 30 different camera angles and all of these different options which you could select. So this is like paradox of choice, way too much information, and the soccer players had no idea how to work with this. So what did we do? Is we applied a design thinking approach, and we let the coach select which fragments the soccer players had to look at. So this is a fragment of 1 minute 30 seconds, and he needs to look at it from Ricardo Verijn and Davy Klaassen, and then from 2 perspectives. So we really toned it down to the necessary things the specific players need to look at. And getting into VR might seem difficult, but actually it is quite easy because like everything in our life, first we copy, then we alter. At least that's some sort of a philosophy I'm developing myself, and I've gathered some proof of that, and hopefully you agree with me or maybe disagree with me. That would be even better, because I believe that with every new technology, it's still the same old story. If you look at this image, it's a bit blurry, but on the left you see one of the first photographs ever made. And this photographer, he put his photography stand in the exact same spot as he had his painter's mule. So the new technology of photography came, and he actually created a copy of the painting he already made. So you have this new possibility, but you create what you already know. This is work by John Rathman. He is a photographer in Google Street View. And this is work by Michael Wolff. He is also is quite famous photographer, and he also made photographs in Google Street View. And what I found interesting is that both of them made this image. So the one on the right is from John Rathman, and the one on the left is from Michael Wolff. So both of them made almost the same image. Interesting fact that John Rathman made it earlier or prior to Michael Wolff. So you could say that maybe Wolff stole the idea from Rathman, or what I believe is that they are both influenced by what they already know. This iconic image by Robert Doisneau is really sort of the epiphany of Paris. And I think we are all influenced by what we have already seen. There's this famous quote by Sherry Levine, who says that any photographer going out to photograph goes out with preconceptions of what can be found. And we see that we do that a lot of time in design, in photography, in art. You could see it as a bad thing, but you could also see it as something that you could work with. Another funny example is Second Life. Back in the days when everyone, or a lot of people still thought it was going to be big, well, it sort of never was. But it says your world, your imagination as a tagline. And then what do we build? We build like a living room with a TV, and then we watch TV, and we build stairs, just like a regular house. But you can fly in that world, so you don't even need stairs. So we keep on falling back on what we know. Now going back to our virtual reality application, we can make athletes better. How do we do that? We create custom scenarios, and those scenarios, those are based on the soccer club's philosophy. So each of the soccer clubs has their own philosophy. For an example, Ajax, you always need to find the third man in any situation as fast as possible, and PSV has a different philosophy. So we give them a controller, a headset, and then this specific custom scenario. And we put them on the field. So imagine that you have this headset on, you have this controller in your hand, and then we can give you 20 or 30 different fragments in which you can train those scenarios. And you can't really do that on a field, on a real soccer field, because you need different people, and all of these people need to get instructions on what to do, and it's really difficult to train. So normally you can only train this like once or twice. And now you can train like 20 or 30 times in a couple of minutes. So now the game will commence. And what you see here is the game commencing, and you get the ball, and you really need to look around right now to whom you're going to pass the ball. And then the game pauses, and an Ajax player needs to be able to decide this within half a second. So that means that you need to train on constantly looking around you and constantly finding a possible person to pass the ball to. And now you chose the correct answer, so you score, and you can do 19 or 29 more fragments. You can even add one to your watch list when you disagree with what you should have done, and then the coach gets a push message, and then the both of you can discuss why you have this disagreement. So imagine that you have this headset on your head. One of the things we see a lot is people pointing. So I have this on, and then the player says, no, look at this. But of course, the coach or the person who does not wear the headset has no idea what you're looking at. The same applies for the coach. When the coach wants to let you know something where you need to look at, it's really difficult. So what we devised is this, we call it the Hand of God tool. And on this tool, where the person in virtual reality is looking at gets translated into this tablet. So the same point of view gets translated to this tablet. What's also cool is that you can draw on the tablet, and that gets then transformed into the virtual reality world. So he can draw circles or point out stuff on a tablet, and you can instantly see that in the virtual reality solution. So instead of being locked up in this box, we try to make this connection between the virtual and the physical again. So head first into what? When we got the first Oculus Rift headset, I think 1.5 or 2 years ago, when we started this, we really saw the potential of this product. But we also thought, hey, this might be a lot of impact on your mind and your body and your brain. And if you look at this research, I won't stand in the quote. This is about the possibility of creating false memories. So if I take a photograph of you guys, like this is you and this is your father, and I cut that out, and I Photoshop you in a hot air balloon, and then I show you that image again, half of this audience will start having recollections of that moment. So it is quite easy to implant false memories in people. So we thought, with this really immersive experience in VR, wouldn't it be possible to also maybe alter people's mind, and do we want that, and is that a possibility? So we partnered together with the University of Utrecht in doing research into how much impact this could have on the human mind. And what we saw is that the movement we let you experience in virtual reality, it improves the spatial updating part of the brain. So your brain actually thinks that it is in that location. It thinks that it is actually moving. Another study we did is more considering the false memory aspect. Is it's possible for us to adjust existing memories of real events through virtual reality. So we had this soccer player kick a ball towards a goalpost like 20 times. Then we showed him the replays in virtual reality, and we altered those replays. And we found out that we could alter them to almost the most extreme amount, and they kept believing it. So it's quite possible to do those sort of things. And of course, we don't want to reprogram soccer players or people. We find that a bit daunting, but it could be interesting if we use this for the greater good. If, for an example, when you have anxiety or you've been in some sort of car crash and you're afraid to drive, then we could also use virtual reality to sort of ease the pain of those memories and make it less of a strain or a pain on your brain. And we are currently looking into using VR to make people a little bit better. Now back to VR and soccer again. As I mentioned before, like the big guys, first they focus on the first possible step. And for us, I think that would be creating more 3D renders and putting them normally on the screen. And then the next phase would be that you're sitting at home with your cardboard and that you can then view those 3D simulations yourself. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. We believe that this will be the future of soccer. So you're sitting at home, and when you want to switch, you can just put on your headset and you will be looking through the eyes of the player, and you will be the one who scores. So there's this entire mix of live virtual reality based on a physical soccer match. I open sourced like 3/4 of this talk. You can find it online with the reference links, and you feel free to use any of it. There's also a link on there if you disagree with the stuff I'm stating. Maybe we can start a discussion. Thank you.